You know how the saying goes, sometimes the best things in life are free. After all, why else would you sign up for all those credit cards, meet your minimum spends for bonus points, and plan your hotel and flight bookings so meticulously that you look like a general preparing for war? But before you pull the trigger and trade your points for a free flight or a hotel stay, let me ask you this. How do you know if the rewards program you've been participating in is even any good? Could you be getting better value by redeeming your points elsewhere or by joining a different rewards program altogether? Well, I'm here to answer those questions because in this video, I'll be walking you through the wonderful yet somewhat confusing world of redemption rates and points valuations, and by the end of this video, you'll be able to correctly think about the question of when you should redeem points and when you should save your points for the future. So first things first, how do you even determine the value of a rewards redemption? The best way to do so is to calculate the value in terms of cents per mile or cents per point, and the formula is really simple. To calculate the redemption value, all you have to do is take the cash price of the flight or hotel stay you want to book, subtract the taxes and fees associated with your booking, and then divide that number by the number of points or miles it would take to redeem that booking as an award. Then you get your answer in terms of cents per mile. Here's an example. Let's say you're trying to book a one-way economy class flight on Air Canada from Vancouver to New York. In this scenario, you find a flight leaving at 2:20 p.m. that costs you around 465 Canadian dollars. Then by using Air Canada's flight search, you also find that if you take that same flight, it would cost you 14,600 Aeroplan points. So let's plug our numbers into the formula and see if it's a good deal. We'll take the cash price of 465, subtract it by the taxes and fees, which in this case is around $109, to give us $356 or 35,600 cents. We divide that figure by the 14,600 points it would take to redeem the award, and we end up with a valuation of 2.43 cents per point. And based on these numbers, it seems like it would be worth paying for this flight using Aeroplan points. How do we know? We'll stick around to later on when we talk about target valuations, and it'll all make sense. But here's one thing to note though, when it comes to valuing points, some people believe that it should be valued based on the retail price of the booking, while others think that the points should be valued based on how much you realistically would have paid for that same booking. Let's say you wanted to calculate the value of a $10,000 first class flight that you were able to book for 80,000 points. If you're adding your numbers into the formula, are you going to determine the value based on that $10,000 retail tag price? Or are you going to base the value on how much you would have realistically paid out of pocket for that ticket? Here's how I think about this question. Calculating based on the $10,000 retail price shows you the actual value that you got by using points. On the other hand, calculating based on what you would have paid is a way to determine how much you actually saved on this trip by using your points. There's a subtle distinction there that's important to understand. Alright, that's enough math for one video. You came here to learn the difference between a good and a bad deal. But that leads to a really good question. How do we know if a rewards program is worth investing in? That's where target valuations come into play. Target valuations are a handy tool used by sites like ourselves here at Prince of Travel to help you guys determine whether or not certain rewards programs are offering good value compared to others. So if you actually go to our website, we have an article listing the various target valuations for the major programs out there. For example, with Air Canada's Aeroplan, we've calculated that the program gives you about 2.1 cents per point in Canadian dollars or 1.6 cents per point in USD, on average across a wide range of redemptions in a wide range of scenarios. We've got plenty more valuations on Canadian and American loyalty programs, bank programs, and hotel programs, which we update on a quarterly basis. Now, it's important to note that just like any art, calculating points values can be highly subjective. Every website will have their own targets and calculations, so be sure to check through multiple sources and think about your own valuation of points as well for any given rewards program. Now, before you go crazy calculating redemption rates and comparing target valuations, there's a few things you need to keep in mind as well. First off, the target valuations that we post on the website should be considered as a baseline for what you can actually get when using your points to book your next trip. As a general rule of thumb, use our data as a guide, but try to do the rewards calculations yourself, and if your results match or exceed our baseline valuations, then you can be pretty sure you're getting a good deal. Also, points valuations can vary dramatically from month to month. A good example of this is the string of points devaluations that we saw in the month of March 2023. We actually have a whole separate video explaining this, which you should check out after you're done watching this one in the description below. Now, based on everything I've said so far, calculating and comparing target valuations is starting to feel like you're being assigned a bunch of homework. but you don't want to do homework. You want to travel. You want to go out there and explore the world. And I can hear you asking, do I have to do all this math and feel like I'm in a high school math class to get a good deal out of my points? Well, no, not necessarily, because at the end of the day, what is and isn't a good deal boils down to your own travel preferences rather than cold hard numbers. And focusing too much on the numbers alone may not actually serve your travel goals at the end of the day. Here's an example. If you live in Vancouver and collect Aeroplan points, we usually recommend that you use your points to travel from Vancouver to Asia, since using points on that particular route will yield a higher value than, let's say, Vancouver to Europe. But if you only have points poured into the Aeroplan loyalty program, and if you want or need to go to Europe, then the choice is pretty obvious. The target valuations won't matter too much because your destination doesn't necessarily line up with Aeroplan sweet spots, and the points can still help you save money on your desired trip to Europe. Another scenario is this. Let's say you have more than enough Aeroplan points to book a flight to Japan with a loved one. But as you try to book a flight and see how many points it'll cost, you realize that the dates you've selected show some pretty bad deals, with Air Canada's dynamic pricing asking for a higher number of points than it would typically cost. Normally, we'd tell you to change your dates or wait it out for a better deal. But let's say you've got limited vacation time and aren't going to be able to travel again for a long period of time. On top of that, points tend to go down in value over time, so the next time you're able to travel again, you may not even have enough points to take that trip. In this case, it may not be a bad idea to ignore the target valuation guidelines and redeem your points anyway, and take that trip that you wouldn't otherwise get to take, especially since you've got such a limited time to use your points before they inevitably go down in value. Another example of an exception to using target valuations has to do with your acquisition style, how you earn your points in the first place. If you got your points for free or nearly free, such as by applying for a credit card with a big welcome bonus, then it may be okay to redeem those points for a little bit of a lower value since you earned those points for such a low acquisition cost in the first place. But if you earned your points through spending, which takes a lot of time, then you may want to be careful with how you redeem your points for flights and hotel stays. You wouldn't want to redeem for lower than, say, a 1.5% return, since you could have otherwise put your spending on a 1.5% cashback card and come out ahead. And one last exception to using target valuations as a guideline depends on how many points you realistically have to spend. If you played the game long enough and racked up a huge balance, or if you're just a big spender who's absolutely drowning in points and refilling your balance at a faster rate than you can spend, then perhaps at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much you're optimizing, as long as your points are getting you closer to your goals and giving you a better travel experience without paying extra out of pocket. One thing's for sure though, if you've earned a lot of points, you'll definitely want to spend them as soon as possible because they could be devalued at any time. And in fact, you should check out this video next to understand all of the recent devaluations that we've seen over the past few months so that you can be sure to understand which sweet spots are still a great deal to redeem your points for maximum value.